Okay, everyone. At this point in time, I would like to introduce our featured presenter, Andy Deach. He will be presenting tonight, Why Invest in an Underwater Photography Workshop. In this presentation, Andy will discuss the value of participating in dedicated underwater photography workshops. He'll cover key benefits such as learning new skills and techniques, the importance of a knowledgeable workshop leader, the ability to revisit locations for better shots, and the advantages of collaborating with other photographers. Additionally, he'll talk about the access these workshops provide to unique dive sites, the opportunity to test new gear, which we will have on our trip down to the Keys. Apparently, Refoto is going to help us out there, and the benefits of image reviews during the workshops. So the people that shoot during the days, after the dives, they have contests, they have reviews of photos to give you advice and recommendations. So this presentation will focus on practical insights and real experiences to help determine whether a specialized workshop is worth the investment. These are pretty costly. So Andy's an avid photographer, as we all know. Most of us know him. He's an excellent photographer. He's got a focus on underwater photography, but also aerial and wildlife photography. Since 2011, he has attended over 20 photography workshops on honing his skills and expanding his portfolio. His work has been featured in many magazines worldwide, and he has won several photography competitions, I believe ours as well. So Andy is a co-author of Inside Scuba newsletter. So it's insidescuba.online. And if you'd like to take a look at some of his work, it's andydeitsch.com, ANDYDEITSH.com. And again, websites is andydeitsch.com and insidescuba.online. So without further ado, I'd like to hand things over to Andy Deach. Thanks so much for agreeing to present to us. We all can't wait to learn from you and hear your presentation, Andy.
Thanks for the introduction. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present. Let's see, share my screen here. Okay, are you seeing it in full?
Yes.
Okay. For some reason, my mouse is locked up. Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah. So, why invest in an underwater photography workshop? And, I hope to answer that question by the end of the presentation. Most of us are either constrained by time, money, or both when we go on dive trips. And so, you know, um, I believe that the best way to capture images is to go on a dedicated photo workshop. And what I mean by that is, as opposed to a regular dive trip where you're going with a bunch of friends, and the focus of the trip is on the best diving. Whereas an underwater photography workshop, the focus is really on getting the best images. And in fact, that may be that you go to what most divers would consider to be lousy dive sites, or you just happen to be snorkeling. But that's not the point. The point really is to get the best images you possibly can. And that's why on these workshops, you see photo pros as well as many kind of amateur photographers who you see winning the competitions all the time. Even if you've been on many workshops, going again, it's good to hear from the experts on what they explain to you, but it's more about the opportunities to get the great images. So as we go through the presentation, I'll discuss some of the benefits and why I think so. So my very first workshop was in June 2011. I had used an underwater camera once before, a friend's underwater camera. It was set up as a macro with a couple of strobes, and I got a chance to play with it on 3 dives. and that kind of got me hooked. And so I bought my own camera. I bought a Canon 7D and a Nauticam housing and some strobes, and signed up for Alex Mustard's photography workshop. And never shot a wide angle before. I didn't know what I was doing in terms of lighting or anything. And at the end of the week, it was a 7-day workshop in the Red Sea. I came away with a bunch of images that I was happy with. In fact, some of them I'm still proud to say I'd hang them on my wall. And I also wrote an article for Underwater Photography magazine and managed to snag the front cover. Um, but the point is that, in a short amount of time, you can really get great instruction and feedback to help develop your skills. Okay. It's not advancing for me. Is it advancing for you guys?
We're
Probably
still in the
not.
Red Sea slide.
There
There
you
we go.
go. So there are different kinds of workshops, and I don't, this is not meant to be an Alex Mustard commercial, so please don't take it as that. But I've been on more Alex Mustard workshops than any of the other types of workshops. So that's kind of I'm giving you my experience based on the various kind of workshops that I've been on. So I'd say the current format of workshops, what you see today are largely based on Alex's workshops. And I had a brief communication with him actually last week because he heard that I was doing this presentation and he wanted me to let folks know that when he set up his workshops, the person who was doing the most workshops at the time, this was in the early to mid 2000s, was Martin Edge. And Martin's workshops were, you would go to a location, he would generally dive with you, have one-on-one instruction with you throughout the day. So different people, he would spend time with different people throughout the day. And then at the end of the week, there was a competition. Alex, when he started out doing workshops, he wanted to differentiate himself from Martin. And so he decided that rather than the one-on-one instruction and the competition, he would create group teaching sessions. So he would have seminars, he would conduct image reviews, and then at the end of the workshop, rather than a competition, there would be just kind of a slideshow of everybody's images. And that's worked out quite well. I actually prefer the idea of no competition on the workshops because as you'll learn a little bit later on in the presentation, you get just as much information from uh, the other people attending the workshop as you do from the workshop leader. And if there was a competition, people would be kind of keeping information, keeping subjects to themselves. So, you're really encouraged on these workshops to share subjects um, and, pass on ideas to one another. So that really works out well. So, that's the Alex style of workshop. I've also been on Erin Quigley workshops, and her focus is more about the post processing. So it doesn't mean that she isn't going to share some information about how to get shots, but she's not focused on things like strobe positioning or shutter speed or backlighting or any of that. She's more about, okay, once you've captured the images, how do you take those images and polish them and get them to the next level? I've also been on Byron Conroy's workshops, and I know Byron spoke here. I don't know if it was last year or earlier this year. This was a workshop in Lembe, and similar to Alex wanting to differentiate himself from Martin Edge, Byron wants to differentiate himself from Alex. And so he keeps his groups fairly small, and he likes to have the camera right with him. And you can see here he's got the camera and a little cream bottle as the subject, and he shows you, how to position the strobes, how to position the snoot, all of that stuff. So in this Lembe workshop, he was very prescriptive in what he did. So the first day, he told everybody just to go out and shoot black backgrounds. So we taught people how to shoot black backgrounds. That's what we all had to do. And we came back, and anybody who needed help, they got help. The next day, shallow depth of field. The next day was snooting, and the next day was creative backgrounds, and the next day was slow shutter. But by the time you got to the end of it, you were building skill on skill on skill, and people were coming up with really creative images. And at the end, I'll actually share some of the images that were a result of that workshop. And then I'd say the fourth kind of trip I've been on that is not it's not necessarily, it's not an underwater photography workshop, but it's a dedicated trip. And I lumped it in here because I still think that these kinds of trips are better than just going on a dive trip with buddies where maybe the majority of the people are not photographers and you and a few people are photographers. In those cases, you may not necessarily be on the sites you want to be at the right time of day, etc. So, and I think that the trip that you're all going on in October down to the Keys would be classified in this kind of group. This guy here pretending to be a humpback whale is Tony Wu. He's a world-renowned underwater photographer. He's won wildlife photographer of the year a number of times. But his workshops, or trips, I should say, are all about the whales in Tonga. You get seminars, but they're all on the natural history of the whales. He gets you into the right place at the right time to get the best photographs, but he's not going to talk to you about how to create the shot. He's assuming you already know how to use your camera, and you just need to be in the water to capture the images. So I think the main thing about an underwater photography workshop is the seminars. This ability to learn new skills and techniques. And typically you'll have anywhere from 1 to 2 seminars a day. Usually the presentations are given and they're aligned with what you're about to do. So for example, if you're going to be going to photograph a wreck, there might be a presentation before that, either that morning or the night before, on wreck photography. Things you should be thinking of to get the best out of that session. And then you come back from after the session, you go out, you do your dive, you come back, and you can then work with the workshop leader to get questions answered about, this shot, I liked it, but I had a little problem with this. So it's really good. You have, immediate feedback on what went well, what didn't go well, and what you could do to improve going forward. So I thought I would share a few images on techniques and things that I've learned in various workshops. This is a technique that many of you guys have used, I've seen, but it's, how to get a nice bokeh with color behind a subject. This is a coconut octopus in Lembe using steel wool with a colored light aimed at the steel wool. Computer is acting weird, so sorry if it's...
Was that a snoot that colored the steel wool, Andy?
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
PowerPoint just crashed. And now you get to see my code. Okay, hang on a sec. I I don't believe it was a snoot, because if you look at the we'll get to it in a sec.
Was it one of those like colorful mini gear flashlights that's all over Asia that we can't get here?
No, it was a mini flash, a backscatter mini flash
With a filter on the front of it?
with a filter. Yeah, but I wasn't using the snoot. I was it's just a mini flash with the filter, and I just lay it on the sand and aim it at the stainless the steel wall. Are you guys seeing the main screen now?
Yes.
I think I've got too much going on my computer. Yeah, so I don't think this was snooted because you can see that I'm lighting up the whole foreground here.
Hmm.
I'm probably using, I have retro strobes, so I'm definitely using the reduction rings on the strobes. And then I've got the light sitting on the sand behind it with the steel wall, and I've probably got a little bit of inward lighting, so that's why I'm not lighting up the rest of the steel wall. So my strobes are kind of like turned inwards a bit. Snooting is obviously another thing you learn on macro workshops. Um, and what they teach you is, and this is on various workshops I've been on, how to snoot yourself. So yeah, you can rely on a dive guide, but what if the dive guide isn't isn't there? How do you set it up yourself? And then really dialing in the light. So if you want to use some advanced techniques, and I'll show you at the end, a cool shot that's using an advanced technique of motion blur with a snoot, you really need to only light up the critter you want to light up. And you've seen probably these snooted shots where you've got a large spotlight around it. If you can reduce that, I think you can get um, the more advanced technique shots will come out better. Here's a snake eel with a snoot with white light on the front, and then I've got a backscatter mini flash with a colored filter on the back to make the outline. Now, I don't know if you guys can see it on your screen, but on my screen, I've got a lot of purple backscatter in the water. You guys
Yes.
see that? Yeah. And so that would be great for winning that competition that you guys just had. But if you don't want the backscatter, what you've got to do then is you've got to snoot the back as well. So this next shot is a white light snoot in the front and a purple light snoot behind. So it's two snoots. And in this case, I believe this was on an Erin Quigley workshop where she had brought a bunch of gear from Backscatter, and it was a pre-production model of the MF2 that had the light wand on it. So the snoot behind the seahorse was remotely triggered. And then this is just using a snoot on the front with a light with a colored filter in the back of the bottle to light up the bottle. Another technique you learn specifically on Alex's workshops are the use of magic filters. So Alex designed the magic filter. And for those of you that don't know what a magic filter is, it's this red filter. Today, there are many knockoffs of this that you see on GoPros, the flip down red filter. The idea of those filters is that they block out the blue light, so they allow the other light, the other color, to come through. So Alex developed this for his own photography and then decided to start selling it with Peter Rowlands. And the reason you need to do it on something like a large wreck is if you want the color to come through on a wreck, you can't use strobes. No strobes are powerful enough to light up such a large subject. And all you're going to do by turning your strobes up is lighting up any backscatter that happens to be in the water. So The trick is the magic filter, which goes when you're shooting wide angle, goes between the back of the lens and the body of the camera. And then it's good to around 60 feet. Once you get below 60 feet, they don't work anymore. And the reason for that is because all red color is gone below 60 feet. And so there's nothing else coming through. You're filtering out the blue, but there's no more color that's going to come through. You want the sun to be behind you, and you want your camera angle just slightly down. And then the other trick with using the magic filter is that you want to white balance at the depth that you are. If you move more than 3 feet in either direction, you need to re-white balance. Split shots is another thing that you learn on workshops, and you guys may have seen many of these shots because every Red Sea workshop that Alex has, they go to this one area in the Sinai. It's called Rasam Sid, which means Sid's mother's head in Arabic. But the reason he goes here is, first of all, for a good split shot, you need flat Cs. And you want, David Doubilet always says that a good split shot needs to have something both above and below the water that's interesting to see. In this case, the coral reef comes very shallow, and then you've got the nice desert in the background. And the reason it's done at night is first there's those calm seas, but also in the Sinai, there are no clouds usually. And so, just a blue sky is relatively boring. But if you can get a nice sunset, that really adds to the above water part of the scene. A few tricks that Alex teaches when you're doing these workshops is first to remove the eyepiece. So the rubber eyepiece on your viewfinder, you're going to be above water when you're looking through it. And if there's any water in there, you won't be able to see the image. So if you remove that rubber eyepiece, no water collects, and then you can see through the viewfinder. The other trick is for a split shot is you want to shut down your aperture. So, something like f20. And you want to then focus underwater. And once you focus underwater and you take the shot, hopefully with the small aperture, everything above the water will be in focus because it's within the depth of field. And you want to typically you want to lock the focus so that it's not hunting every time you're dipping, because then you're dipping and you're shooting and you're dipping and you're shooting. So lock that focus. And in this particular case, the shot, I actually had my strobes hanging down to light up the coral and then looking into the sun. Double exposures, another thing you can learn on a workshop. In this case, the trick to a good double exposure is you want to have an area of your image that's black where you're going to have the second image appear. So in this case, I snooted the coconut octopus. This was taken in Lembe. Left enough space in the top half of the frame that was all black, knowing that I was going to try for a double exposure. And then the upper part of the image was captured with a fisheye lens and a dome port, actually in my swimming pool in Florida. Another thing we learn on workshops is the use of off-camera strobes. So one thing you want to try and do in wide-angle images is to create some depth, to draw the viewer's eye through the image. And you can see in this case, I've got two areas where we have ambient light coming through. And then that area in the middle, which is lit up by the off-camera strobe, where you can see the drill press. This is the machine room in a dive site called the Crusola Cay in the Red Sea. And then you can see if you look here, you can see the slave. So Alex had actually set this up First, because he was, teaching us how off-camera strobes work, but also he didn't want anybody going in and mucking up the scene with silt. So he went in, set it up, and then we all kind of came in, and he taught us what settings we needed um, to make this work. And then here is a shot that I took on my own with an off-camera strobe. And this is a truck on the Thistlegorm. Thistlegorm's a wreck in the Red Sea that has a lot of World War II trucks and bikes and ammunition and so forth. And this truck is known as Julian's truck, and that's because Julian Cohen was the guy who figured out how to actually photograph this. In order to take this picture, this truck is sitting behind another truck. So to take the picture, you actually have to lie in the bed of the truck that's in front of this truck. And then you have to lower your camera down all the way so your arms are fully extended down. You're not able to look through your viewfinder at all. And then you need your strobe arms to be extended in kind of rabbit ear positions to be able to light up the truck itself. And there's many layers to an image like this because the ambient light, it's pretty pitch black inside the hold of the Thistlegorm. So in order to get that ambient light in, you have to slow your shutter speed way down. So this was taken at 1/6 of a second. Another thing we learn on workshops is the use of models. So imagine this image without the model in the shot. It would be an okay image, but I think the model really adds to the image. And so, Alex talks about that in his workshops, and he usually manages to recruit a dive guide to stay in position while everybody gets a chance to take a shot. This was taken at a place called Boo Windows in Raja Ampat. And this is Lisa English, the dive guide from the Indo Siren, which is now no longer, it got burnt down. And this image is no longer possible because the right side of the window has collapsed. But she was basically in position for 30 minutes while everybody went through to get their shots. So one of the things that a good workshop leader will do is make sure that you're at the dive site, the right time of the day or the right season. And as we know, some shots are only possible at the right time of the day or the right season. So for example, if you want to see anemones with their skirts closed, they'll only close them when they're in shadow or when the sun's out. So there's no point in going to shoot, a carpet full of anemones if it's bright sunny skies. So that's the role of the leader, get you there. And I think that that's one of the things that you're not going to get if you just go on a regular dive trip, because again, the cruise director, if it's a liveaboard, or the person sending you out on the boat to go to dive sites, if it's a land-based resort, is not thinking about the photography. They're worried about what's the majority of the group going to do. But in a trip that's focused on photography, you get to the right place at the right time to get the best shots. And here's an example of being in the right place at the right time. This is Devil's Grotto in Grand Cayman. It's in about 35 feet of water, and it's just a bunch of caverns. And during August and September, millions of silversides show up. Sometimes they're not as great as others, but this particular year, we just had millions of them. And I think we did 3 dives over in 2 days. So we did 6 dives just on this site. because it was so good and we just wanted to keep going back and getting better and better shots. Um, the other example of being in the right place at the right time is if you want to get shots with dappled light, you can only get that right before sunset. So the sun has to be out. It needs to be low in the sky, and you want flat seas. And in order to see dappled light, you need to be shallower than 10 feet. If you get deeper than 10 feet, you won't see this. But when it happens, it's just magical. And of course, when you know you're going to go shoot a wreck, um, being able to shoot, let's say you wanted to shoot the wreck, like here, the kittiwake, you wanted to shoot the bow. Well, then you need to know that you want to have the sun behind you. So going at the right time of the day to shoot the wreck is important. This is another example where we had a model who just stayed in position, and Alex instructed him to stay further back so that, when you capture the image, the model looks small relative to the massive size of the ship. It really enhances the image. So revisiting sites is another important aspect of getting great images and what workshops allow you to do. If the conditions are good, you tend to keep going back. And in this particular case, this is the Thistlegorm again. Alex had set up a workshop that was scheduled during neap tides. So that's when the tides are weakest. And the plan was to be on the Thistlegorm for 4 days. Now, I don't know how many of you have dived the Thistlegorm, but usually when you dive the Thistlegorm, you get day boats that come out. It could be just a mess. There could be, 100 divers on the site at any point in time. It makes it a bit hard for photography. So we planned for 4 days, and because we were on a liverboard and moored there overnight, there were many times where we had the dive site to ourselves and with very little current. Usually there's strong current on the Thistlegorm, which isn't so bad when you have to go inside the hole because then you're protected. But you're like blowing like a flag in the wind when you're descending the the rope, and it's not fun if you're carrying a bunch of off-camera strobes and your camera and so forth. But we have open pool, so you could just for 4 days you could just go in as often as you wanted, as long as you didn't. There was no decompression diving, so as long as you weren't going into deco, you could do as many dives as you want. And it really made for some very cool images. Another example of revisiting a site a lot, this is also in the Red Sea. In June, in the northern Red Sea, you get schools of fish aggregating to spawn. And these are bohar snapper that they always show up at a site called Shark and Yolanda Reef. And in this case, there were, I think, 18 of us on a workshop, and we had to work as a team to basically corral the fish into staying in a school. If anybody misbehaved, and as underwater photographers, we tend to want to get closer and closer. But if you get too close to the school, they just break up, and then it kind of ruins it for everybody because you've got to then back off and you've got to wait for the school to kind of get back together again. And if you've only got about an hour of dive time, you can only do that so many times where you kind of minimize your opportunity. But again, on a workshop, you get to do this dive 3 times or 4 times in a day. And so you really enhance your opportunities. And here's an example where I benefited from another photographer who got a little too close. They were kind of on the other side of the school, and got too close and pushed the school towards me. But as they came towards me, they kind of split around me, and I managed to grab the shot. And here's an example of a school in Raja Ampat, School of Sweet Lips. They sit at around 85 feet, and they're on a patch of cabbage coral. Not every time you go down there is the school. The school's always there, but they're not always in a tight bunch. So the ability to revisit the site a couple of times is nice, especially at 85 feet because you don't have that much time. Um, and you got to remember, other people are trying to get the shots too. And this is a shot that I'm pretty happy with. It took me 3 dives to get this shot. It was again at Shark and Yolanda. So there's the schooling fish, but they also have some amazing. There's a wall that drops to 7,000 feet. But on the wall, you see a lot of cleaning behavior, and these batfish go into the reef on the wall and get cleaned by these cleaner wrasse. And I was watching this behavior, and I kept trying to shoot it. Me and another photographer were constantly going back to this one location to try and get the shot. I finally managed to get it on my 3rd dive. Another benefit of the workshops is being with other photographers. So this is my friend Paul Rosenblum, and we're looking at images, and maybe when you've captured 20 images in a series, I'm sure you guys have done the same thing. You're kind of trying to say, okay, which one is better, this shot or this shot? And it's always good to have another set of eyes looking at it to help you make those decisions. And also getting feedback. How would you edit this shot? Do you have any helpful hints on Photoshop or Lightroom? And there's a lot of that goes on. Here's another example of a group of people sitting around in I think this is the Red Sea or liverboard. Not all workshops you see this. So I'll give you an example. The Cayman workshop, Alex's Cayman workshop, people you stay in condos, and there's not really a good common area for people to congregate, and so you don't see people getting together to edit and do this kind of thing. But on Red Sea Workshop or in Lembe, where there's common areas, you see that all the time. You see people getting together, editing together, sharing ideas together, and it's really beneficial. Here's another example. So this was during that trip that I mentioned on the Thistlegorm, where we had 4 days. So 4 of us decided that we want to capture this shot where these 3 trucks in a row. We wanted to capture a shot where we had used off-camera strobes to light up the inside of the cab. And it takes quite a bit of planning to do such a shot, right? You've got to put the off-camera strobes in each of the cabs, and then what you're doing is um, you're you're shooting from where I am positioned, and the first remote strobe triggers the second strobe, which triggers the third strobe. And here you can see my friend Joseph, who is kind of positioning the strobe in this front truck, and we are indicating to him whether he should increase the power or decrease the power or move the strobe slightly. But once you have that all done, then he moves out of the way, and we each take turns in this position. Now, unfortunately, I was the last person to get the shot out of the 4 of us. And so by the time it was my turn, it had gotten pretty silty, and you can kind of see in the upper right-hand corner, there's quite a bit of backscatter there. So I got the shot, but I'm not happy with the shot, and this is the reason I keep going back to try and constantly improve my images. Another thing you get on workshops is access to unique locations. So this is a shot I took with my drone. Uh, Anybody want to take a guess where the liveaboard is? If you look carefully, it's right there. So I was a little nervous actually flying my drone. I think I'm about 3 miles uh, from the liveaboard when I took this picture. And we did this because this is an area called the Blue Water Mangroves in the southern part of Raja Ampat. This is not a place that you would go. Let me show you where we actually ended up diving, right around here. This is not a place that you would go if you were on a dive trip because it's pretty crappy diving. I mean, you're in 3 feet of water or less. It's pretty mucky. And, it's like a mangroves. But you manage to get these crazy cool images. So this is soft coral growing on the roots of a mangrove. And I basically used my camera and put it under the soft coral and looking straight up through Snell's window. Something you wouldn't get on a regular dive trip because you wouldn't even get there. Here's an example of Jellyfish Lake. Now, Jellyfish Lake, there's Jellyfish Lake in Palau, which you're probably familiar with, and then this is Jellyfish Lake in Mosul, which is in Raja Ampat. And again, a dive boat's not going to go here. First of all, it's out of the way, but second of all, you have to climb up this crazy steep cliff with rocks and trees, dragging all your gear. It's pretty exhausting, actually, but the rewards are definitely worth it. And here's an example of this is a place called Pele's Playground in Raja Ampat. Again, it's pretty shallow here. You wouldn't dive it. It's 4 feet of water, and it's ripping current. And we had to make our way over here. Actually, standing right next to me is Jim Garber, who is a SFUPS member, and he and I we both pretty much got a similar shot. But again, you wouldn't be able to get a shot like this on a regular dive trip because the boat's just not going to go there. Stingray City in Grand Cayman. I know it's changed now. It used to be when Alex Mustard first started doing his workshops there that no one else was going at dawn. No operators would go at dawn. He was going at dawn. And, the group had a couple of hours on the sandbar before anybody showed up, which was really great. Now, operators have figured it out. They do run dawn trips, although they limit your time. You're only there for about 45 minutes. I actually did one on my own um, without an Alex workshop, and I was disappointed that they dragged us away after 45 minutes. Here's another drone shot from Raja Ampat, and this is a dive site off to the left-hand side called The Passage. Again, a place that no one would dive normally because it's not that great for diving. In fact, when we went, the dive guides we overheard them saying, "Why are we diving here? It's crappy." But it's fantastic photographically because you get these amazing scenes where you have the trees overhanging the water. It's relatively shallow, and so you can get these cool images where you have the sun shining through the trees, with this sponge and anemones and other coral in the foreground. I'd say image reviews are a key aspect of the workshops. This is where they don't happen every night, but most nights there's an image review, and the workshop leader will say, please submit somewhere between 1 and 3 images for the image review. and you submit those images, and then they go through them one by one. People own up to which is their image, talk a little bit about why they submitted it. And this is an opportunity to submit not only images that you may be proud of, or images that you hate, or that didn't come out the way you wanted, because you're trying to get feedback. And usually the workshop leader will um, say, hey, this would look better if you cropped it this way, or if you adjusted the settings this way, and they go into Lightroom and start tweaking things. Or they'd say, if you captured it this way, it would be better. So it's really a good way to learn and get feedback. Trying out new gear is another great opportunity, whether it's the workshop leader's gear or it's other attendees of the workshop. This is a shot I took with a pre-production model of the fisheye conversion port from Nordicam that Alex had been testing for them in Raja Ampat. But I've also had the opportunity to test, as I mentioned before, the pre-production release of the Mini Flash 2. Lots of different tools you get to try. The one rule is when borrowing someone's gear, if you break it, you pay for it. Here's a shot that I took with an EMWL. I borrowed Byron's EMWL on the Lembe workshop because I wanted to get one of these wide angle macro shots. And here's an example on Aaron Quigley's workshop where it wasn't a tool so much, but those blue marbles in the background. She suggested you could use those for bokeh, and she lent them to me, and I'm pretty happy with the way that shot came out. So I thought I would just quickly share some results from others. So on this workshop that I was on in March with Byron, the majority of the people on that workshop were wide angle shooters. In fact, most of them had not they bought a macro lens for the workshop. Not all of them, but the majority. So it was kind of cool to see how people went from knowing nothing about shooting macro to producing pretty quality images. And I thought I would share those with you. And this is that example of using a snoot with where you have to have a pretty good tight light beam on the subject, and then you slow your shutter and drag. Nice silhouette. Backlighting. Using creative backgrounds. Using a technique called inward lighting, where you bring your strobes and you turn them into almost back towards the lens. And another example of using the snoot with slow shutter for motion blur. So that's what I had. I can open it up for questions.
Hey, Andy, I actually have a question
Yeah.
about those dark backgrounds. You have a lot of darker areas in your photos, or especially the snooted images. And I was wondering, how do you manage to not extremely underexpose those areas?
Which images are you referring to? So I can,
Well, there were just a lot of the images, that anything that has just like a lot of dark area, anything that's been snooted,
yeah.
um because when I do that, I always have a lot of underexposed areas anytime I have a snooted photo with a dark background, and that's kind of
What you're saying the subject is underexposed?
no, the background. And I mean, it should be just black, right? But then when it's underexposed, I lose image information, right? And I'm really new, so this is kind of a noob question. So I'm sorry if it's kind of confusing how I'm asking it.
No, no, I'm trying to understand because yeah, that's exactly what you're trying to do is you're trying to when you're using the snoot, you want the background to be black.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to have any data there.
Okay, okay, because I had that in some pictures and I was like, well, but if I print it, isn't it going to look weird in those areas? I've never tried it, but I was like, I should ask somebody who knows this stuff better than I do.
Yeah, I mean it's really you're trying to achieve the look that you want to achieve in the image and the black background image, while not natural. I know some photographers who say they hate black background images because it makes it look like it's being shot at night. And we should be letting the blue light in. But in certain kinds of shots, that black background is very graphically pleasing, and so it makes the image pop.
Yeah.
Especially where we shoot at Blue Heron Bridge, where we have this, ugly muck, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you want that to be black. If you want to light it up, you could do one of two things. So that image that I showed of the coconut octopus at the beginning with the blue steel wool in the
Yeah,
background.
yeah.
Yeah, in that case, I was using inward lighting to light up the coconut octopus. So I was trying not to light up the steel wool. Anything behind the coconut octopus was not
Mm-hmm.
lit up with
Yeah.
my strobes. But then I'm using a fixed dive light on the steel wool to light up the background that I want to light up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. No, that's good. Good to know. Thank you for the information there, because I know, that people are always saying like don't overexpose, don't underexpose, because you're gonna be losing image information. I was like, but how do I do that with black backgrounds? I didn't understand, but like that
Yeah,
really helps. So
yeah,
it's
you
just
don't
gonna
want any
happen.
data there. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah,
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. That answered my question.
Hey, Andy, I
yeah.
wanted to ask, how often on these workshops do you find yourself in a situation where you're waiting around a lot underwater, where, people are all trying to shoot the same subject or trying to work with the photo pro in a particular area? Does that often become an issue, or is that a pretty uncommon thing?
It's a pretty uncommon thing. I'll tell you where it happens a lot is when you're trying to shoot pygmy seahorses. Then you see people go into pygmy seahorse rage.
Right.
Um, but and one of the things Alex is very good at is he tells people to share subjects. So you take 5 shots. There's no point. First of all, when you're on a subject and you're taking a bunch of pictures, we've all done it. You kind of like looking in the viewfinder and you just start taking shot after shot after shot after shot. And
Right.
then you pull back and you go, oh crap, that's out of focus or my lighting was wrong or whatever. So you're much better off taking 5 shots, then stepping away, letting someone else take a shot, look at your images, realize what you've done, and then readjust and then go back in than just spending all the time. So as long as you have a group of people that are, kind of all get that message, and
Yeah.
Alex tries to kind of like instill that at the beginning of the workshop, it works out quite well.
Good. And I also wanted to mention that almost 20 years ago, I dove the passage in Raja Ampat and dove it 3 times in a row. And it was one of the most memorable dive sites I've ever been on. I just thought it was an amazing, amazing place.
Yeah. but not a place you're going to go if you just go on a regular dive trip.
Oh, it was a regular dive trip, and the other people on the boat were pissed that we didn't want to leave the spot because it was so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great photographically.
So Andy, do you have any examples of like other great resources for photo workshops besides Alex? I see like Susan Meldonian runs workshops. She's here. I know that Tom Holleran sometimes do shark workshops. Do you know
Yeah,
any other
I
ones? Just
know,
list them off.
Matthew Sullivan does. For anybody who's interested in workshops around compact cameras. You've got Phil Metcalf out of the UK. He runs workshops. Martin Guess, I don't know if that's a name that's familiar to people. He runs workshops. Saeed Rashid is another one who runs workshops. Alex Tattersall is another guy that runs workshops. Ron Watkins, who's based in the US, runs workshops. Um, so yeah, what I would recommend if you guys don't subscribe to Underwater Photography Magazine, I'd recommend doing that. It's a free magazine. It comes out once a month, and a lot of people um, advertise their workshops there.
Cool.
I don't know if that helped.
No, that was good.
Andy, great presentation. One of the best we've had in a long time, actually.
Thank you.
Question for you. I do a lot of snooting, obviously. Do you, when you're trying to get some backlighting or kind of from an upper angle to the back, do you, freehand your snoot? Do you typically use a muck stick with the snoot attached to it with the MF2, which has the light tube, or do you use a GoPro stick with the like an MF2 with a snoot attached to it?
I've tried different things. I've tried, you know, who is it that makes it? Is it Backscatter that makes the muck stick with the little wedge thing
Yes.
that then you have to glue because it actually cannot handle the weight of an MF2 because it starts spinning around. Um, so I've tried that. I've tried actually just sitting the snoot on the ground. If it's a low subject, like a hairy frogfish, a blue heron bridge, I've done that. I just lay it on the ground and let it light the background. And the other thing I've done is I've got some really long arms. So I've tried kind of just 3 sections of long arms and then kind of put it behind. And what I've done is I've kind of collapsed it like an erector set, so it's got like 3 different clamps, and then it's easy to take into the water, and then when I need it, I just kind of unfold it like a transformer. And if I really get desperate, I do use guides
Sure.
or buddies.
Hmm.
I saw Stacy Groff on here earlier. I don't know if she's still on, but I've used her before.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know a lot of times when you snoot, if you want to get some of that background, like that one beautiful shot that you had with the blue the object in the background with the blue. Yeah, you gotta open your aperture up a little bit. You're gonna snoot and accentuate the subject up close, but if you open that aperture up a little bit, you're gonna get some of that background. And I know Grace Pempick had an excellent photo she posted recently online, where you can get the close-up subject highlighted. But if you open that aperture up a little bit, you're going to get the background as well to answer her question, Janine's question earlier. Yeah, you can get the back. Sometimes you actually do want the background if you have something interesting far away.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. I hid it because I put a bunch of images in here and then I wasn't sure. if I would have time to show them all. So. Here's an image. Can you see that?
Yes.
So in
might have
this
been the
case,
coconut octopus, be the one before that.
what's that?
You can go back one more slide to the coconut octopus. I think that was the one that was quite impressive. I think it was that one, right? Oh. Well, that's one where you
Yeah.
had the
Yeah. Yeah. And this is cool, but you know, often when I first did this, you didn't see too many images like this, and now you see a lot of images like this. So I'm always trying to figure out how do I differentiate, from everything else that you see on Facebook. Um, so I think I gotta do that again. So this image um, is a natural background image, right? So what I did was I took this is a site called Nudie Falls in Lembe. They call it Nudie Falls because it's a wall and nudibranchs like fall from the wall, and as you're diving underneath, you sometimes see these nudibranchs just falling down through the water column from all the bubbles of people swimming by. But there was a lot of dead tongue coral. This is a piece of dead tongue coral. So I put the dead tongue coral behind the nudibranch, and then I used a purple, an MF2 with a purple colored filter on it, and aimed it at the tongue coral. So that's how I got that shot.
And during Byron Conroy's presentation, one thing that he does is he'll take photographs of backgrounds that he likes and then laminates them and then
Yep.
brings them with him. That's next level.
Yep. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Okay, well, thanks again, Andy. Like I said, it was one of the best presentations we've had in a long time, and phenomenal pictures, great presentation, great slideshow, and I know a lot of us, are really looking forward to going on some workshops to take our shots to the next level. And these were some, very impressive shots that you had there, very diverse
Thanks.
and yeah. Okay, well, good night, everyone, and thanks again, Andy. Great job.
Talk to you later.